Good morning. Welcome back to the Celtic Way. I'm Tony Haggerty at Haggerty10 on the X and Twitter handle, and I'm delighted today to be joined for the first time by drumroll, please, at Josh McCafferty7 on the X or Twitter handle. Josh McCafferty, how are you, sir? Good to be on
Yeah,
with you, Josh. I've not actually, well, it's the first time I've kind of met you as well, so it's a virtual meeting too, but how are you, fella?
yeah, very good, Tony. Thanks, feeling good. Obviously, I think I've been on a couple of times in the briefings, but obviously, a first link up with yourself, so very much looking forward to it.
Right on cue, my dogs have decided to go absolutely tonto. Josh, get used to this. This is what happens. Hopefully, it doesn't put you off too much. But we're here to talk all things Celtic. Josh, I'll start by asking your thoughts on Celtic 5, Aberdeen 1 from the other night.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting game. I think actually, obviously, the way Aberdeen played, they looked to come out, they looked to get Celtic in the first open early stages of the game. It worked, and they played pretty well. I thought had some chances. But if you're not clinical against Celtic, especially at Celtic Park, we all know you're going to get punished. And that's exactly what happened. Celtic broke forward. They were getting space in behind. That's how the second goal comes. Obviously, in the kind of old legs in that Aberdeen midfield, Graham Shinnie and Siebert Nielsen couldn't really get back. And Celtic get the 3-0 lead going into half-time, which I thought, was it deserved? Maybe not, given the way the first half went. But I think overall, the way they played in the second half, very dominant. I think the 5-1 victory was very much deserved. I think a really good night for Joy. Obviously, get the goal. Yang coming off the bench, I thought he had a nice cameo as well. And then what struck me as well in this game was when Celtic concede, how angry Kasper Schmeichel is. Obviously lose his clean sheet record at home, hadn't conceded it since all the way back in the league at Parkhead in that Aberdeen game in October, and it kicks the post as soon as they concede, even though it's 4-1. And for me, that just shows the elite standards within that Celtic dressing room, and that's another really positive thing to see. But another routine victory, another one chopped off, and I think it's now five more wins until the title.
We say that those elite standards are driven by the elite level manager, Josh. It's something I always say on the show. You'll know that as well. Yeah, 5 it is. They go to Paisley on Saturday evening to play St Mirren. We'll talk about that on the show. But we're not naive enough, Josh, to say that while Celtic are doing well, vultures are circling, predators are looking at our players. But I think the manager's always said Celtic are in a good place. There's no need to sell. But the reports today from David Ornstein of The Athletic linking Celtic's Alistair Johnston. Well, he's saying that Fulham are interested. They're amongst a whole host of English clubs keeping tabs on Alistair Johnston, and Ipswich have been thrown into that mix as well. But you and I both know Alistair Johnston signed a new deal, tying him to the club until 2029. Most recently, he seems very, very happy. David Ornstein did say that. He seems very happy at the club. And I think to all intents and purposes, people are saying Alistair Johnston's a future captain of Celtic, should he want to stay the length of his deal. I mean, when Celtic are playing well and they're showing as well as they did in the Champions League, it's only natural people are going to look at your players. It's a backhanded compliment, but I'm like you. I don't particularly see Alistair Johnston wanting to go anywhere, but I guess it's up to somebody to make a bidding for Celtic to make a call if it's something that's interesting.
Yeah, definitely. First of all, I would say it comes as no surprise to everyone who watches Celtic week in, week out. He's really a terrific standout player, so consistent. He's shown that in the Champions League this season. I think previously in campaigns, Europe's been one of the points where Alistair Johnston's not really kind of made the mark. But this season he's been so good, especially in that Bayern second leg. He was absolutely terrific. So it does come as no surprise. But like you say, Celtic hold all the cards in this situation. They've got him tied down to 2029. He's 26 years of age, so just coming into the peak of his powers. In any bid, Celtic, it's not as if Celtic need the money. I would say they're probably likely to negotiate a Champions League playoff without many issues in the summer, in August, fingers crossed. So that banks you another 30 to 40 million pounds. They've already got 60 in the bank. So it's not as if Celtic need any money in terms of Alistair Johnston moving to the English Premier League. He strikes me as a player who's really got what it means to play for Celtic and really harnessed everything at the club. He's wore the armband on a number of occasions. he reached 100 appearances recently and was speaking about his pride at that. So, yeah, I don't think, and as well, the teams that have been mentioned so far, the only two names that have come out is Fulham and Ipswich, and to me, they don't strike me as, obviously, no disrespect to anyone watching from Fulham and Ipswich. They're not typically big English Premier League clubs. They're not an Arsenal, they're not a Manchester United, they're not a Chelsea, they're not a Spurs, anyone like that. They're kind of mid-table teams. I'm not sure of the specifics of the table now, so I don't keep up with English football a lot. But they're not teams who'd strike me as ones that would, Alistair Johnston, would he really want to go there or stay at Celtic, continually win trophies? And he knows, like we all know and we've said, that he could be a future captain of the club. He's already been at Celtic for a number of years now, and who knows if he stays another 3-4 and he becomes captain, he would really be in terms of the number of trophies he's won, appearances made, success he's had, a real club legend if he manages to stay for a long while. But it is no surprise, and you never know what's going to happen, especially with the money these clubs have. If they throw in a bid that Celtic deem that they're not able to turn down, it just remains to be seen. So it's all really if, buts and maybes, and that's always the case when you get transfer interest.
And we have to stress it's the only reason we're mentioning it is because it's David Ornstein, who's quite a reliable source of transfer activity and knows his stuff and obviously heard something. But again, like you, I wouldn't be excited by Fulham and Ipswich if I'm Alistair Johnston. I'm thinking to myself that I'd be better served playing at Celtic and fulfilling a lot more ambitions in terms of playing in the Champions League and playing at that level. If, as you say, top 5, top 6 club comes calling from England, that's a different story. That's the one that your interest is suddenly piqued and you're thinking, okay, maybe listen to what they have to say. But Fulham and Ipswich, for me at this minute in time, I know Fulham are spending big, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, it's and also as well, from a purely selfish point of view, hands off, he's ours, Josh. You know what I mean? And the sign says don't walk, as they would say over the pond. So yeah, and I'm quite happy. When you look at Alistair Johnston, the way he speaks, the way he handles himself, you mentioned there in that old phrase that he gets it, but he is somebody that has come into the club and from the get-go when he made his debut at Ibrox has just embraced everything about being a Celtic player, both on and off the park, and he is a fine representation of what your club is all about and the successful period that you've had over the past.
Definitely, 100%, and that's what I think. That's why he's a big fan favourite. To be honest, just as well as the off the park stuff, the sheer endeavour, the effort, everything he shows on the pitch. He wears his heart on his sleeve, and I think in the modern day, particularly, players like that are hard to come by. You get so many journeymen or players who come into Celtic, and Celtic know their position as a stepping stone club in the modern day of football. But very rarely nowadays do you get guys like Alistair Johnston who've come in from abroad, Canada, the USA, comes over and really, like you say, gets it. It is an old phrase, but it's true, and it certainly rings true in this situation. And I just hope, like you say, Tony, Fulham or Ipswich doesn't really pique his interest as much as we may want.
And also as well, Josh, I'm thinking Celtic reached the playoff round, right, of the Champions League, lost to Bayern narrowly. If you're trying to build something, you're always trying to progress and improve that ambition. And I'm sure Rodgers thinks he can take that ambition further in the Champions League. Last 16, last 8. Now, that ambition to me comes from the top as well. Can Celtic go a couple of seasons without selling any of their prized asset? And I include Daizen Maeda in that as well at this moment in time, because he is someone who now, to use the phrase, piquing interest of others. And Brendan Rodgers had an interesting thing to say about him after the Aberdeen game, because he was asked about could clubs possibly come calling for Daizen Maeda in the summer as well. But again, he's very relaxed about it. And he said this, I would think they would. I think a number of players will because of their efficiency and their work. Not only that, they've done it at the highest level. If you're doing it at Champions League level, then you're showing that you can do it in that stage. So yes, if you're scoring goals like he has and his work as hard as he does, then of course that will always bring attention. But my thoughts are that Rodgers is trying to build something. Can we go a couple of years without selling anybody and really see where you can take it? Because domestic dominance follows if you're doing well and claiming scalps in the Champions League, Josh. That happens. That would happen. So I want to see that ambition of the manager matched by those upstairs and saying, do you know what? We'll back you in the transfer market and we won't sell anybody. I know that's subject to bids coming in and stuff, but in an ideal world, I'd love to see Celtic show that ambition for a season or two and just see where it can take us.
Definitely. I think everyone would. Brendan Rodgers spoke about, I think it was either during or after the Bayern Munich game, making Celtic a seasoned team at Champions League level. And I think that's what everyone wants to see, seeing Celtic be competitive in Europe, be within half a second, maybe have even taken Bayern Munich to extra time. The progression they've made under Rodgers in Europe's been quite sensational over the past year since he's returned to the club. What I would say about keeping your assets, it's in modern day football, it's so tough. You've got a number of considerations to make. You've got the financial side of things. If a club make a bid, you cannot refuse. If a club come in for 35 million for Daizen Maeda in the summer, Celtic aren't going to turn that down.
Yeah.
You've also got the point of players' morale. Are players going to be happy to stay at Celtic beyond the summer? Like, for example, someone like Nicholas Kuhn. I think he strikes me as the type of player who, if he got some interest from any team in the English Premier League, he probably would border on wanting to go. So you've got players' desires in their career as well. Celtic, as the manager spoke about this, Celtic isn't the be-all and end-all for a lot of players. For others it may be, for others it isn't. But like you say, if you manage to keep that squad together for even just another season, and you never know where it can take you, because you finish in the top 24 in the Champions League again, and you get perhaps a luckier draw than what you did against Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich are one of the best teams in the competition. You could have easily got someone like Feyenoord or Brest instead, and Celtic would have fancied their chances in a playoff tie against one of those teams. So if they can keep the core and the majority of this group together, if you lose one player in the summer, I don't think it's the end of the world. But as long as you keep the nucleus there of the key players, people like Daizen Maeda, Alistair Johnston, obviously you're going to have Jota, and if you can add another...
Kieran Tierney's coming back as well.
Exactly, Kieran Tierney, and I think keeping people like Austin Trusty, Cameron Carter-Vickers, because we've seen how good they are. You've obviously got Kasper Schmeichel staying on for another year, and if you can supplement that with maybe one or two more additions of real quality in summer, then there is every chance, like you say, next season, Celtic that season European team.
The great thing is that in the Allianz Arena, Dermot Desmond and Michael Nicholson were there. Yeah. So they saw how close Celtic came. And I think that strengthened Rodgers' hand, because he could turn around and say, we ran this as close as we possibly could. Can you help me just try and build some? I mean, I'm hoping that that's the kind of conversations that are happening. And, we have at our disposal an elite level manager, and the best manager that a club like Celtic could possibly have at the helm at the minute. And I would just like to see them go all in, as much as a team at Celtic with their financial parameters can go with the manager.
What I like about it as well, you look at the summer last year, Celtic spent 9 million on Daizen Maeda, 11 million on Arne Engels, 6 million on Austin Trusty, 3.5 million on Paulo Bernardo. They bring in Kasper Schmeichel, who I'm sure is on a very high wage and maybe got a nice signing on bonus. Spent a lot of money last summer, and they backed the manager. So Rodgers can then turn round to the higher ups at the club and say, well, you backed me last summer. I've now, once you've backed me, I've got the club the best European campaign in over a decade. So if you back me again, I will continually progress this team. And I think he will, because like you say, he is an elite manager. He's the best manager, I think, in the British Isles at the minute, who's from Scotland, England, Ireland. He's top, he's elite, and he's the best manager Celtic can get, let's be honest, in terms of knowing the club, in terms of tactically, everything about him. So Celtic really need to back him. Obviously the contractual situation with the manager is a whole topic you could discuss on another day, but keeping him around is key as well for everything.
Well, I've already nailed my colours to the mast and written that he will sign a new deal Don't know when that'll be, but I'm pretty confident he'll do that because I think he wants to see where he can take this. That's his vaulting ambition, is to make Celtic a seasoned team in the Champions League. They got a taste of it this season, and I'm sure he wants more because I think he believes that keeping the nucleus of this team, maybe losing one stroke none, if that's possible, he believes he can take them further. And I think most Celtic supporters believe that too. Josh, I think there's an excitement there, isn't there, about it too?
Yeah, I think everyone's behind Brendan Rodgers because they know what he can do. Before, really, in Europe, in the Champions League, before this season, his credentials at that level had been questioned and put under the microscope. Continual drubbings of teams like Atletico Madrid, Paris Saint-Germain, Barcelona. Celtic obviously had that long drought without a home win in the Champions League. But this season, he's really answered those critics and fought back, and it was a really terrific campaign. So fans know Brendan Rodgers can cut it domestically absolutely fine. He's the king. He rules the roost in Scotland. But the European scene has been where a lot of people have had questions, but this season he's really answered them. So everyone is behind the manager. Everyone knows, in terms of his comments and what he said, he knows what he lost when he moved down to England. So I think he's pretty nailed down back at Celtic, and everyone's behind him. Everyone knows what he can do. I think everyone appreciates the level of Brendan Rodgers as well.
And I wanted to ask you and get your expertise as well, because you've covered it extensively. But Bonner made his debut the other night. I would imagine someone like yourself would have been delighted to see that. And he did very well. But you covered Celtic youth players for a long time. So I just wanted to get your take on that.
Yeah, so it was really nice to see, actually. It's always nice to see a young player make their debut, both for the player, for the family, for everyone. It's a real nice moment, and it was great for Jude Bonner to get that. And he'd done himself proud in the game, actually. I thought he'd done some really nice stuff, and obviously physically, Brendan Rodgers talks a lot about you need to be physically ready if you're going to play for Celtic and you're coming through the academy, and if you're good enough, you'll get the chance. So Bonner, 6'2" boy, I think a lot of people were saying on Twitter that they mistook him for Arne Engels when he was on the pitch, so that says a lot about him. In terms of other players that are coming through, Rodgers obviously talks a lot physically. A young man who's not the biggest in stature is Sean McArdle from the academy. If you've watched the B team on a couple of occasions, you'll have probably seen him stand out. Quite small, ginger hair, left foot. He's a really good player, I think, in midfield. Obviously, everyone knows about Daniel Cummings' goal-scoring exploits, and the goals haven't dried up over the past couple of months since the transfer speculation about the West Ham moves emerged. Still no movement on that front. Nothing confirmed yet, but the contract at Celtic's still up at the end of the season. Putting me on the spot here with players, I'm trying to think of other ones. But yeah,
I didn't mean to do that. That wasn't my.
Sean McArdle is definitely one who I think stands out. And I was actually watching I covered it for the site a couple of weeks ago. Celtic B faced RB Salzburg in the UEFA Youth League, which is the Youth Champions League. They played them in the last 32 tie. Painstakingly got knocked out on penalty shootouts. But the fact that they were able to take a team, we all know the Red Bull clubs have really big, strong academies, players physical. But Celtic took them all the way that day, and young Kyle Ure stood out in midfield. He's a name a lot of people might be familiar with, actually. Captained the under-18s to a Scottish youth a couple of years ago. He's now with the B team, and he scored a fantastic free kick in that game. So he was a standout there as well. But that's an under-19s team. Celtic enter into the Youth Champions League every year, and if the senior team qualify next season again, they'll have another team in that tournament. So that's another good thing to see for the club.
Excellent. No, I knew you would be all over Jude Bonner. That would please you greatly. Now, there's a small matter of association football taking place in Paisley tomorrow, Josh. The Celtic Scottish Premiership bandwagon rolls into Paisley 5 wins away from retaining their Scottish Premiership title. But St Mirren looking to claim the scalp for both Rangers and Celtic in the space of a week. Hibs claimed Celtic scalps last week. Some people say it was a shock, but Hibs are the form team at the minute. I think that's 14 unbeaten in all competitions for Aberdeen, so good luck to them. But St Mirren, they'll pose a threat, won't they? Especially with that physicality up front, with all the Sanya and Manjon guys like that. Celtic will need to be on their mettle, and trips to Paisley, especially since Steve Robinson took charge, are never easy, are they?
No, definitely not. St Mirren have shown this season they beat Rangers at Ibrox, they beat Rangers in Paisley, so they know, Celtic know they're a threat in terms of that small tight park at the Smythe Stadium. It's never easy to play on. I think it's the last time Celtic there was August, a 3-0 win. McGregor, Hatate and Alistair Johnston all scoring. It feels like an age ago at the start of the season, but
yes,
yeah, as you say, the bandwagon rolls on. It's another game to tick off in this kind of ultra marathon Celtic have had, but really looking forward to it. 5:30 kickoff under the lights. It'll be a good occasion, and I think Celtic should have no problems in the game. They should be able to go there and win comfortably, but you never know. Stephen Robinson's teams are always very well organised. He always has a plan, and he's shown this season that he can get scalps in the big teams. So it's by no means a gimme, as some might say. Celtic have to go and work for it, but I'm confident in the end that they can pick up the 3 points.
Do you go hard and fast with your team, Josh? Many changes from the team that started against Aberdeen?
I don't think I would make any changes, actually, come to think of it. I think Daizen Maeda should continue up front, Jota on the left, Nicholas Kuhn on the right. I think that's where most of the debates lie. You could argue Greg Taylor recently becoming a father, could he come in at left back instead of Jeffrey Schlupp? I would continue with Schlupp. I've been really impressed by him since he's joined Celtic. Central defensive partnership picks itself. Trusty Carter-Vickers, obviously the aforementioned Johnston at right back, and the midfield three really picks itself at the minute. You could have the argument for bringing in Luke McCowan, giving Rio Hatate a rest. Maybe we could see something like that in the midfield. Maybe a wee spanner thrown into the works there, but no, I think the team really picks itself this weekend.
Yeah, I'm of that opinion too. Plot spoiler for predicted 11s. But yeah, I'm very much, it ain't broke. It didn't need fixing. And despite, as you say, Aberdeen having those chances and Celtic maybe not being on their mettle in the first 45, they were still 3-0 up at half time, Josh. And more or less the 3 points were in the bag. And, you know, the goals, I actually thought the goals were very well worked. You know, Arne Engels tries a iron needle pass and it spins up, but Daizen's just alert and makes it look so easy. He just follows the trajectory of the ball and then gets himself in shape for the volley, which is a difficult skill to execute in itself. And I spoke about Arne Engels' cutback for Jota. Watch the cutback for Kuhn in the cup final. It's the exact same goal where he's in a position to score, but he very unselfishly lays it on a plate for Jota, who takes the double touch. We'll talk about that. And they all go in. And then Callum McGregor, who's just a wonderful vein of scoring for him this season. And when that fell to him, you thought there's only one place it's ending up. So really lots of impressive stuff in terms of the way Celtic are scoring goals, Josh, for me anyway.
Yeah, I think the Maeda goal isn't getting enough credit, actually, because like you say, it is a really cultured finish. I said that to myself when I was watching it on the replay. You see, it comes from such a high vantage point. And with a defender on your back hassling you, and you're thinking, is the goalkeeper going to come out and clatter me? Obviously, Ross Doohan didn't. I thought he maybe could have came out for it. But it's definitely a difficult technique to pull off, and Maeda caught the ball so sweetly and he finishes it very well. Less said the better about Jota's finish, but I think the second half goal, Yang does really well. He's involved the whole sequence of that goal. Plays a nice one too with Luke McCowan. He had a wee touch where I thought he took it too much, but the Aberdeen player didn't commit, and then he gets his break. Doohan should save it, let's be honest, but they all go in, like you're saying. It's another goal for his confidence. So to his confidence, the world are good. And then Maeda, like you say, he's always at that back post for the fifth goal. You know he's going to be there.
17 pass move, I think, was for Yang's goal. And you see Maeda at the end takes his talented 26. Frightening numbers, Josh.
Oh, he's been absolutely terrific this season. You know, a lot of the focus in the first couple of months of the campaign, in the first half of the campaign, it was on Nicholas Kuhn, but Daizen Maeda too in that time was on fire. He was scoring against Rangers at Celtic Park, scores the winning penalty in the cup final, scoring his first couple of goals in the Champions League, so that'll have been a big landmark for him. And wherever he's played this season, whether it be the left, the right, through the middle, he's really been sensational, and he's come into his own. And I was watching Sports Scene after Tuesday night's game, and I think that's 10 goals alone in February for Daizen Maeda. It's either 9 or 10, which is quite something, and he's really softened the blow of Kyogo Furuhashi's departure. He's made it look like Celtic have not missed Kyogo at all, continually scoring week in, week out. So he will be the undoubted player of the season at the end of the campaign.
That was my next question. Player of the year, no-brainer?
100% it is a no-brainer, unless he scores about 3 or 4 own goals within the next couple of weeks, which I doubt is going to happen. He's the undoubted MVP, as they would say.
Yeah, that was my next question about because everybody was saying Nicholas Kuhn was kind of a runaway candidate for it earlier in the season, but I think Daizen Maeda this time he's run perfectly, because I think, to my knowledge, that was 13 goals in his last 12 games. I mean, that's just phenomenal scoring rate. And he is one of those players who's now taking to the field, and managers talk about it a lot, probably feels he's going to score every game now, especially through the middle. And the thing about it is, it's not a position that's alien to him because he does it for his country.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people feared at first, but he was converted into kind of left winger, wasn't he? Stroke striker by hand. But he can do both positions brilliantly.
Yeah, and you can see why Celtic kind of looked to convert him into that left winger role, given his pace, his ability to press and everything he could do. But as a striker right now, he's thriving. What I find intriguing and funny is Brendan Rodgers' comments when just after Kyogo Furuhashi departed, he said he was asked about using Daizen Maeda as a number 9. He says, no, I want to sign a striker, I want to sign a centre forward, and that was well documented. But he's played Daizen Maeda striker, and I feel every time he's played him there, he's scored. So he's somewhat had to eat his words, that manager. And as long as Daizen's scoring when he's playing up front, I'm sure he's going to continually play. Yeah,
and he is a pest, isn't he? He is a defender's nightmare.
Yeah.
He would hate to play against somebody like that because he's constantly switched on. And I made the point the other night as well. I don't know what Daizen Maeda Ross Doon's been watching, but he was wanting an eternity for his clearances, and all of a sudden Daizen Maeda would just sprint into the pitch and took him by surprise a couple of times. And you're thinking, that's one thing you don't do if you're a goalkeeper.
Exactly.
He's playing centre forward.
I think Manuel Neuer was a bit guilty of that. The Bayern tie at Celtic Park Maeda get moved to striker about the hour mark, 70 minutes into that game, and I don't think Neuer knew what hit him. And Brendan Rodgers recognised that, and he said that in the interview after the second leg, where he said, we recognised that Manuel wasn't quite ready for Daizen, so we kind of pressed him more in the second leg. But yeah, if you're a goalkeeper, you've got to be on your toes when Maeda's on the pitch. He's just a relentless source of energy and pressing. And Rodgers said he's world class. He's one of the best in the world at pressing a couple of months ago, or maybe towards the end of last season. But it's so true. And I think that side of his game is irreplaceable. It's so difficult to find someone like him. And that's why, going back to talk about transfer stuff, it's so, if you were wanting Celtic to keep hold of one player, it would be Daizen Maeda, in my opinion. There is no price tag, there is no sum of money that, in my opinion, should make Celtic part ways with Maeda unless he's desperate to leave, which I don't think is the case.
No. Now, Celtic do head to Paisley, Josh. I'm going to put you in a spot now and ask you what your prediction's going to be, because we don't get to do it that often. You said earlier you think a comfortable win, but what does that entail in your mind? What do you think?
I think I'm going to go with 3-1 to Celtic. I think St Mirren might grab a goal, but I think 3-1, comfortable victory Saturday night, and that should do Celtic going into the Hibs Cup game the week after.
Well, I'm the lucky one who's John A. Straw that will be there for the evening kickoffs, but I'm really looking forward to that. I always do. But Josh, thank you for your contribution today. Absolutely stellar. It wasn't that bad being on with your old dad, was it? It was all right.
No, it was all right. I really enjoyed it, Tony. I've been alongside me. What more could you ask for?
Trying to walk you through it. One of us was a star, Josh, and I'm looking at him. All right, so that's all right. But no, thanks very much. Really enjoyed that. Look forward to working with you in the future as well. It'll be great. But guys, thank you so much. Nearly 500 people joining us live. Really appreciate it. It's fantastic. We always appreciate it. Thank you for all your subscriptions as well. You see the ticker tape running along the bottom, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. If you can do that, it helps us grow the channel. It helps us produce the videos like this. You know what it's like. You know the drill. So thank you very much. Josh, enjoy your weekend, enjoy the game, and we'll see you all tomorrow on the Celtic Way. Take care.